Yes.
Are we? I'll make sure I'm on the right. Yes.
Yes.
All right, let me retweet this bad boy.
God, I'm tired. All right. Yeah, retweet. That's a good move. There we go.
I have to do it from
Boom. All right. Should we go?
Yes.
Hey, hello. It is the Go Birds podcast presented by the Bet Park Sportsbook and Casino app. It's a table slapping kind of show because the Eagles got Jalen Carter and they got Nolan Smith. Like the guy I wanted them to trade up for. They got him. The guy thought they were going to take it 10. They got it 30. Like, Elliot, what a night, man. And that is the most energy you'll get from me. I'm going home going to bed as soon as this pod is done. But I'm giving you every last bit of energy I have in my body.
Well, you brought the
the
table
Eagles
slap,
deserve it. Howie deserves it. And these two young men from Georgia deserve it. I am so freaking excited right now.
Yeah. First, everybody auto download.
Look at you
it's our big episode.
This guy.
This could be our biggest episode of the year. So everybody, if you're listening, hit the auto download
really
button.
Helps us out.
Leave a 5-star review. It really helps us.
You know, even if you just want to delete the episodes after they download, that's fine.
Well,
I mean, it would hurt. Right. I would be sad about it.
We would be.
I think you would be missing out.
Right.
But you know what? It's okay.
So
just hit the auto download button.
Yes.
It would really mean a lot.
I'm happy I remembered, but now let's get to the picks.
Okay. Good job by you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't want to kill your vibe, but
it is funny that the one day you remember is like the day where it's like
exactly
like let's get into it, and you're like, hold on a second.
But at least it's the good day. All right. So
let's get into it.
I think the best compliment I can give of the draft last night is those are the picks I would have made. Like on its simplest form, right?
I love you. The best compliment I can make is like,
well,
like me, buddy.
What I guess I mean by that is so many times after drafts, you know, especially obviously the Eagles, since we do the Eagles pod, but we're both fans of other sports, whether it be NBA, you know, baseball draft is what it is. But
Jack Fritz's the only person who pays attention to
but I think for so many years, especially with Howie, we would sit here and go, it's not what I would have done. Yeah, I get it, but it's not what I would have done. Or I get why you trade back, but man, I really would have liked this player.
Even not for me last year, but for you last year, obviously not the AJ Brown trade, but the Jordan Davis move. You're like, I probably, and to be fair, I was very happy with Jordan Davis pick. Right. I would have taken Kyle Hamilton in that spot. So we have that every year.
Yeah. And so what I think what's been interesting with Howie recently is you think about, you know, no pick is the obvious 100% consensus pick, but Devontae at 10 was kind of just take the guy, right? Jordan Davis, I have my concerns, but you know, defensive lineman was they just take the guy.
And they jumped a smart team who was going to take him that whole thing.
Jalen Carter, obviously, take the guy. And then Nolan Smith, just take him,
You're
right?
so right about this.
So I think
didn't overthink any of them.
So I think for the last few picks, you know, Howie has just done the thing that people thought he should do.
All SEC guys, all big program studs.
It's not been, you know, we actually think this guard from Northwest.
Yeah, or this wide receiver from TCU.
Right,
exactly. The guy who caught 4 touchdowns in the national championship game. Right. We're going to get the guy who played in the national championship game.
So I do think when you look at it, those were the right picks at the time. Now, will they pan out? Like, we'll see. You never know with any draft pick, right? But I think sometimes with the draft, the best grade you can give, and people are always upset, well, how can you grade picks right away? You're not grading the pick itself. You're kind of grading like the process and the thought process,
the value,
behind it.
The spot where they were taken versus where that people thought they should go. Like you're basing the value in the moment. Obviously, we all know anyone in the first round could bust. Any single player.
Right. But with that being said, I think they were both the correct picks at the correct time. And I think that we'll do Jalen Carter first, but overall, what last night was really a masterclass in from Howie was just flexing on the rest of the league and going, I know more.
I know what everyone's going to do.
Exactly.
I know what I can be patient.
Yep. I'll sit there and I'll know and I'll be right. Because when Jalen Carter was falling, like he gets to 5 and you're saying, oh, maybe you trade up here.
Well, and Rap Sheet's tweeting out Seattle's
exactly right.
And all that.
And then he gets to 6 and it's like, well, like trade up, like and that's 7, 8.
Well, and especially 8, there were rumors about trading up to 8 before
exactly.
the draft.
So when the pick was in for Atlanta,
I was like, oh God.
I mean, obviously my heart broke because it was Bijan.
Yeah, I felt bad for you. I again, you know, Jalen Carter and Will Anderson, like I said many times pre-draft, were the top 2 guys I won this draft. So I'm ecstatic. But I will say, I did feel for you.
Yeah.
It is, I will say, though, and I have to say.
It's a bit of a vindication that he went 8.
I do have to. It is.
Yeah.
I do. Granted, a dumb team took him.
It was a bad pick.
Whatever.
He went 8.
I will say, though, let's rewind to the start of this when we really started diving into the draft. Like, you got into Bijan. You became a Bijan.
Yeah, I was in on Carter from
your
day one.
first thought was, this is the biggest need this team has, the most important position they have a need at. Go get that dude. So and, just to bring us back.
Yeah, and the thing I keep going to with Jalen Carter is the Eagles needed Jalen Carter and Jalen Carter needed the Eagles. I think there's an argument Jalen Carter needed the Eagles more in a way, just in terms of
no. We'll play in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, we'll get into.
There's no single player who the Eagles need more.
Right. So anyway, he's at 7, 8, and you're like, trade up. They move up one spot, give up a 4th round pick, but ultimately they basically just sit there and Jalen Carter falls to them, basically. Nolan Smith, and I will say when the end of the first round was happening, it really did make me realize how much we concentrated on number 10 and number 30. Because I'm sitting there.
Like, wow, Nolan Smith's there.
Yeah.
All right.
So anyway, it's like 22, 23.
Everyone
and I'm like, Twitter, go get Nolan. Go get Nolan.
It wasn't just you. Everyone on Twitter, every Eagles fan was like, trade him for Nolan. This is unbelievable. Trade him for Nolan.
And then when they're sitting there, even then, it's, they're going to trade it.
Well, I saw your tweet. You're like, don't trade back, Howie.
Yeah, just take him. And he did it. He just took him. And I'll save some of why when we get into Nolan Smith more. But I think of all the Georgia players they've taken, if I'm being honest, Nolan Smith is my favorite.
Wow.
I think Jalen Carter is a better player, but I think because when you take everything that Nolan Smith is, I think that's
like the most
my favorite prospect that they have taken.
We'll get to Nolan Smith. I agree. I have some thoughts. And obviously, again, like this is someone I thought they were going to take. I liked him. I wanted him. I'm ecstatic, and I wanted defense. Like this was my wish list. If I could have said, and I wouldn't have said, I would have never said, get Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. I didn't think that was a possible outcome for the night.
Well, Jimmy Kempski,
if you had told me that, I would have been like, yes. What are we trading 30 to move up to 12 and giving up a first, like to get Nolan? Like what's happening here?
Jimmy Kempski had a really funny tweet. He said, if somebody did a mock draft where the Eagles got Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, and only give up a 4th, he said he would never take that person seriously.
No one would have.
And I agree.
Well, and again, it shows like just how, and we said this going in, right? We said, hey, let's not overrate these mock drafts. Every year they're wrong. Perfect example. He won't get past the Bears at 9. If Carter falls to 9, the Eagles aren't getting him because the Bears are taking him. The Bears clearly weren't taking him. They traded him to the freaking Eagles. Like it's just everything is wrong. Like so, Will Levis. Best odds to go number 2. He has not been drafted yet.
By the way, my Gibbs tweet where I said I would take him over Christian Gonzalez. He went 12.
Looks bad.
So to your point about the defense, obviously everybody knows I wanted offense. I was not shy about this, right? Bijan would have been my number 1 on the board. But if you would have said to me, Elliot, you're going to get defensive guys. Give me a list of 3 and we'll see what I can do.
Yeah, these would have been your guys.
Yeah, it would have been Will Anderson, not in this order, but Will Anderson, Jalen, or maybe in this order.
It probably would have been that order.
Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, and Nolan Smith. Yeah. And they got 2 of the 3.
Yeah.
So ultimately, we're not sitting here and saying, look, they needed help on defense, which is why they took Devin Witherspoon, right? These players have clear-cut paths to starting and playing right away. Jalen Carter will probably start week 1 snap,
he absolutely will.
Nolan Smith, we'll see, but he's not going to.
He'll be situational.
Yeah,
that's the way
he'll be one of the 4 guys they rotate.
He fits into what the Eagles do.
Yeah.
And let me get to my thoughts on Carter because look, the way I look at it and the way I looked at it coming in, and look, I know there's off the field stuff and all that, but I said this prior to the draft, and I believed it then, and I believe it now. I trust the Eagles here.
Yeah.
And look, they could be wrong, but their track record, especially this new regime of Howie, since 2016 on or whatever, in terms of judging character, in terms of culture, in terms of understanding what's going to work and what's not and all that. And obviously there was the Carson thing and all that, but that was a unique situation. Like, I think they've been brilliant in terms of making these types of deductions and looking at situations. We know that Dom is as good as doing his homework as anyone in the league. Like, I just trust the Eagles to make their evaluation on the person. And if you're going to trust the Eagles to make their evaluation on the person, they got the best player in the freaking draft. The Eagles almost won the Super Bowl last year and somehow came away with the most talented football player in this draft at potentially their biggest area of need.
Yeah.
It is like a masterclass. Like, we'll get to Smith, but like Smith is like, even if they didn't draft Smith, this is an A+ draft to me just because you got Jalen Carter at such a big position of need.
Nolan Smith is like an extreme amount of icing on the cake.
Totally. And then on top of that, like, I think that the culture that this team has created is, to your point, like Jalen Carter needed to come here. He's stepping into as good a culture as we've seen in Philadelphia. I know that the 2017 team's right there, but with Jalen and Nick at the top, like, I trust the culture. I trust the culture setters. I trust that, this team's going to be focused. This team's going to be locked in, and that Jalen Carter is going to be embraced. And dare I say it, love him up, Nick Sirianni, right? Like,
that's Nick's strength.
And that stuff's going to matter. And then he's here with his buddies. I mean, your friendship wins. Got another big win last night. I mean, Nolan Smith and Kobe Dean, best friends in the world.
Yeah,
Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, best friends in the world or whatever. Like, this is a big deal. And it is to your point, I think, look, the Eagles got the best player in the draft, and that is a win. Most talented player in the draft, and that is a win. But I actually am with you. I think the bigger thing is Jalen Carter is going into literally the perfect situation for this kid and his situation.
If he doesn't succeed here, he probably was not going to succeed.
Exactly.
And
that's why you build this culture, right? That's why you focus on culture. That's why you care about these things, so that you feel confident taking risks on great players. And the list we talked about before, like Warren Sapp, Randy Moss, so many of these guys who had character issues, who had things happen, who fell in the draft and ended up being Hall of Fame players.
So I agree with everything you're saying. And I think sometimes, to do like some self-evaluation, I do in my own head play devil's advocate, even though it maybe might not be what I believe, right? Because at my core, I believe Jalen Carter was the right pick. I think that he will be good. I think he checks the box. I think he will be the pass rushing defensive tackle. I do think Nick Sirianni and Howie Roseman and Dom, the head of security / assistant GM, deserve the benefit of the doubt and have earned the benefit of the doubt. And I trust them to turn him into a great player. But let me tell you some of the concerns I have, and I'd be curious to know what you think about them, or kind of explain to me if you think I'm
please.
So two things. One, this is the second year in a row where they've taken a player where at the introductory press conference, there are questions about his effort. And Jordan Davis, I don't think effort was an issue for him last year. I don't. And for me, I view the Jordan Davis season as pre-injury. I don't ever think of anything of it happened after.
Thank you.
I'm not.
Because I feel like a lot of people are not doing that.
Yeah, and
a lot of people are calling him a bust. It's like, this is crazy.
See, but I think where I differ from people is I was not as impressed.
You were down on him to begin
prior.
with.
Prior to the foot injury.
And you also were down coming into the season. Yes. You had real concerns, and you didn't see those concerns abated or whatever.
So to me, when they drafted Jordan Davis, it was, well, you know what? Like, he's not a great pass rusher, and he's a bit out of shape, and his effort's an issue. But now he'll be in the NFL, and those things will be fixed, right? And I don't think we saw that last year. Nakobe Dean falls to the third round. Everybody's excited, and rightfully so. It's a player I would have taken. And we sat there and we said, well, he fell to the third round, but like, he's going to be awesome. And I know he didn't play a lot last year for a number of reasons, some of which are him related. Like, he did not get on the field, but then also they had the linebackers that played really well in front of him. Do you think that maybe we're underselling the concern with Carter because we're so excited he dropped, when we just have two examples of Georgia guys? Because let's say we said with Jordan Davis.
It's only one that's a similar thing to Carter. And even then, I mean, I think the Jordan Davis effort thing also have a lot to do with him just not being in shape sometimes and stuff like that.
Well, but
I don't think he's not trying.
But that's a Jalen Carter thing too.
Right. But Jalen Carter.
Well, but Richie talked a lot.
Jalen Carter was a one-time thing that we know of. Like, he's never been out of shape before except the pro day thing. And he was going through like as tumultuous a life thing as you could go through. Not only is he under investigation, he could be sued civilly. Like, he's got all these things going on. His draft prospect status is falling. The biggest thing in his life that he worked for. Like, all these things are going on at the same time. Plus, on top of that, his friends just died. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of human stuff here where, like, and again, I'm not completely excusing him being out of shape for the pro day. Honestly, that does, like,
the pro day doesn't matter to me.
So, okay, well,
my concern is people throughout the year at Georgia reportedly like telling teams that they had concerns about him. The pro day thing is what it is. And the accident thing we can talk about in a second, but I agree with you that that was a traumatic event, like all these things, right? My concern is it seems like there are reports and teams that felt prior to the accident, prior to the pro day, that this guy might just not be someone that works super hard. And I was talking to Hugh Douglas about this, who was in Atlanta for all this, right? And the perception, and I think it's probably true, is that Jalen Carter knew he was going to be a top 3 pick. He didn't try super hard in practice because at this point, who really cares? Just get to the pros. And I think there's probably a lot of like validity to that. Mm-hmm. I just mean, as talented as this guy is, and he is super talented, he did fall. And I think sometimes in the draft we have
I
have
know.
this thing where it goes, well, he fell here, but that's insane, and that could end up being correct.
Instead of saying he fell for a reason.
I just think we just saw 2 players from Georgia who probably fell more than people thought.
Well, Nick Davis didn't fall more than he thought.
Well, but
Davis was projected to go like right in that range. It was always Baltimore or the Eagles
right.
in that range.
But I think also with Jordan Davis, and we felt this at the time, and I think there was truth to it, that he's a freak athlete at the defensive line position. Why shouldn't he have gone higher, right?
Sure, I guess. Yeah.
So my only Jalen Carter thing is I just wonder if maybe we're underselling the concerns here about not the accident, not whatever.
About the work ethic.
About the work ethic and everything.
Look,
and Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean and Nolan Smith were with him at Georgia. So, yes, he's going to come here and they're going to be close, and I think there is real benefits to that. But those guys were there for some of this Jalen Carter stuff. And so while and Howie said this,
they were there. There wasn't this like this is mostly stuff it seems from this past season. This Jalen Carter
right, Nolan Smith. Yeah.
I'm saying the Jalen Carter stuff.
No, I'm saying Nolan Smith was on the team last year. Is the point I'm making.
I'm not talking about Nolan Smith. I'm talking about Jalen. I'm not talking about Nolan Smith either. I'm talking about Nakobe Dean and Jordan Davis were not on the team with Jalen Carter last year.
Right, I'm saying Nolan Smith was.
Right, but what does that have to do with him coming to work with Dean and Davis? I'm not really talking about forget the rookies. I'm talking about coming in and working with guys who've already been here, guys who are part of this culture already, that who you played with at Georgia. And look, my also point is like you didn't hear, and maybe it was happening, but you didn't hear stuff about Jalen Carter not working hard or whatever when Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean were there is my point. It's only after they left. So maybe they did play a role in him.
Maybe that was because he wasn't draft eligible.
He said Nakobe Dean was like his mentor and stuff like that. So like, who knows? Like that.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any negatives in Nakobe Dean being here when Jalen Carter's coming here. When he said that's somebody he looks up to, I don't think it's a negative when Jordan Davis is here and that's somebody he cares about. Like, I think that's positives. I understand what you're saying, that it still happened when it potentially, we don't know with those guys, but with Nolan Smith at Georgia. But I don't think it's going to hurt to have people you feel comfortable with and people who theoretically, at least Nakobe, we know is a super hard worker and is going to go out and get the most out of what he had.
And I thought Howie Roseman answered it well last night when he said it's not on Nakobe and Jordan Davis to bring him along, right?
It's on Sirianni and Desai
and Jalen Carter, right? It is on them.
Of course it's on Jalen Carter. Yes.
So I think ultimately I'm 80% in agreement with you that having them there will help him. I'd be honest in saying there's a little part of me that feels like, I don't know, man. That's a lot of Georgia players. And maybe I'm just overthinking this from whatever.
The greatest defense we ever saw in college football. Like, why wouldn't you want those players?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a reason 5 Georgia guys went in the first round last year. Like, it's just a fact.
And how were they, though?
Well, I mean, I didn't follow all those guys.
Well, that's what I mean. None of them stand out to me. Like, I don't think it was ever.
Well, Trayvon Walker was pretty good. Like, he had a decent year as the one.
Okay, did he?
People were pretty psyched about him by the end of the year. So, I don't know.
Yeah. I just, when we talk about the pick, I'm just trying to think of some of the reasons and concerns that this could not work out. And I do think last year when Georgia with Georgia players, we were like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And they were basically non-factors the whole year. So I do think Jalen Carter will come in, he will play, he will get a lot more snaps. And again, the biggest concern I had with Jordan Davis was that he can't pass rush. Jalen Carter can get after the quarterback. Jalen Carter is one of the best pass rushing defensive tackles to come out of the draft in a long time.
Yeah, he's as good a defensive tackle prospect as has come out in the last.
He got something like 70 quarterback pressures in his last 25 games or something. I mean, the dude averages, almost 3 quarterback pressures a game, right? And Nolan Smith also gets after the quarterback at an extremely high rate. It was right there with Will Anderson. So they got 2 players who, if I'm going to draft the defensive guys at GM, you better get after the quarterback. And they both get after the quarterback. So again, I would have made these picks at 9 and 30. I think it's an A draft. I'm just curious what your opinion of it is, because in my head,
I'm not concerned about. I get it. The thing that concerns me with Davis that you've brought up is the work ethic thing. Like that would concern me with any player. I always want people to. I think we've seen with her. It's like hard work matters, like flat out in the sport. But I just don't think there's enough evidence to really say that that's a thing. And also, I think things are situational. Like, look, you're at Georgia, you're the best player. You don't need to play as hard to beat guys. Like,
I think there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah. Yes. So like, I don't think that's something that we can really know till we see how he is here and see how he acts. But regardless of that, I think that especially, people were talking about luxury pick and all that, especially when you have the 9th pick in the draft, 10th pick and trade up to 9 after being in the Super Bowl, like. And again, especially with your culture and all that, but I think that affords you the ability to take a risk on a guy who is that talented and may have some red flags on the field.
Look, I want to be John Robinson, but if I was sitting in the draft room as the general manager, Like I took Howie's spot. Nick's there, Dom's there, Lurie's there. And they said to me, Elliot, it's your call. We will take Bijan Robinson, or we feel comfortable like taking Jalen Carter. And I had to actually make the decision. I would probably take Jalen Carter.
Because it's the correct decision.
Yes. And with offensive line, I soured on a little, but I said I begrudgingly understood it. This is a different. Jalen Carter is an awesome pick.
It's the biggest need.
Yeah.
We said it was the biggest.
It's the biggest need. Yeah.
Before we get to Nolan Smith, I want to get to him in a sec. I do want to talk about the accent.
Yeah, I do too, for sure.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, just to get the facts out there, because let me tell you, I just did the morning show. A lot of misinformation.
Well, I was gonna say, so I spent an hour last night reading up on it.
I spent a ton of time. So for what it's worth, and we can go through it. We can. For those who don't know the situation, Jalen Carter was in a car with a teammate. In another car was a staffer for the program and another teammate, and they were racing.
Two other people,
and they were racing, and obviously one of the cars crashed and two people died. Jalen Carter was found. He waited at the scene. He spoke to police. There were some rumors that he left. He did not.
He did not leave the scene.
The police told him to leave when he was done. Like, he stayed there. He did it all by the book and all that stuff. He has since been cleared legally. Like, he has a misdemeanor charge. He could still be sued civilly, which theoretically could happen.
Right.
So that's
why
no criminal charges. Last night there was questions about what he could say and what he couldn't, like, and how he brought that is active investigation. So there are still things happening with it, but criminally he is clear, so to speak, of it all. That is like basically the basics around it.
Yeah.
Your thoughts?
So whenever there's people that are that age, I can't help but think about it through like my brother's lens, because my brother is 21. So, he's 3 years younger than Jalen Carter. 3 years younger than Jalen Carter. Different situation. Obviously, I don't think he's going to get drafted over number 9 overall by the Eagles. But here, after reading up on I don't think so. No. Although I could score a touchdown.
I like that you said. Yeah, I like that you said. I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, he does come from a long line.
Implying that your brother, who does not play football at Temple and is 21,
yeah,
might at least in some level play.
Right.
Football, yes.
So I'm not just saying this because he's on the.
Jalen Carter's only 22.
Okay, so he's 1 year older than my brother, right?
Yes.
What?
Same birthday as one Emily Seltzer.
Oh, really?
That more in
there
on.
we go.
Happy April 4th to both of you.
Very nice.
It'll even more in on
a big day for.
But the takeaway from that did just turn 22. So he's
just turned 22. So he was probably exactly. He was 21 when this happened.
Yeah,
I guess
exactly.
So when I read up on the incident, my main takeaway was he made a really bad decision with a group of people that night, and he was not one of the people that suffered from it. Tragically, people passed
their
away.
life. I'm sure
he was with a group of people that all made a bad decision.
Yeah, no doubt.
Right? From what it seems, and I was not there, this is not something where it seems,
He's not drinking, by the way.
He was not drunk.
Unfortunately,
the driver that did pass away was drunk, right?
Yes.
So ultimately, my takeaway is if I got a call the next day and my parents were like, Elliot, Jude was at college last night. He was racing a car and exactly the same thing happened. I would be like, earmuffs, like, Jude, like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, what a dumb decision. But I also would not sit here and go, well, your life is ruined. You're not responsible.
I don't love you anymore.
Yes, it was a dumb decision Jalen Carter made. And also, it seems he'd been pulled over for speeding before, right? So he clearly, hopefully, has learned from this situation.
And that, if you want to be concerned, you could say, like, he really learned from this
yes.
stuff. That's a
and that's on the
sure.
Eagles, right? So
and on him, to your point.
If my brother was involved in that and then he was caught speeding again, then I think you're like, bro, what are you doing, right? You need to get like your shit together.
And to be fair, a difference between speeding and racing. But if you assume if he's driving around,
that's what I mean. Just being dumb in a car. He was being dumb in a car, and it was the day they celebrated the parade. So my honest opinion of the Jalen Carter off the field thing is, of course, this accident is part of it, and it speaks to him making a dumb decision, right? Yep. But to me, the more concerning part of this is the, like, does he love football? Does he like those things? I am me. This is my own opinion. I'm willing to look at the car thing and saying, God, he made a bad fucking decision that one day. I don't know Jalen Carter. I know my brother. So I would be able to add more context to it. The Eagles know Jalen Carter. They investigated this. They spoke to him. They spoke to people that know him. And I've always said this, and I will stand by it. From my interactions with Jeffrey Lurie, Nick Sirianni, Howie Roseman, and Dom, I trust them personally, where I think their values are the correct way, where I think they will make the right decision. And I think that's all we can say about it. At the end of the day, I love speculating. We talk so much about how I love the rumor mill and the roller coaster. I think this is something where speculating as to what happened that night
is dangerous a little bit.
Yeah, and it's not fair. If you want to say you were concerned that he came to the pro day overweight, and you want to say you're concerned he didn't practice hard, I think that's fine. The car thing, he was not charged. He made a bad decision. It was a dumb decision he shouldn't have made. Other people made dumb decisions that night. Like there was a group of people, and something tragic happened. But I just know me personally, I am not going to write him off because of it.
Yeah, so I'm in a very similar spot. And it's funny that you talked about your brother that way. I actually thought of myself. Of myself when I was that age. And again, you're most under the amount of stupid fucking things I did. And the amount of times, whether it's I could have gotten arrested or I could have died.
Right.
Like, absolutely. Looking back, there are a couple times where I was like, I could have died doing that.
Yeah.
Like, or I could have caused something. We've all, or at least, look, not everyone, I'm sure there are some people who've never made those bad decisions.
Right.
Like a lot of people do. When you are young, like you make bad, and this is no way excusing it. Like this is a tragedy. People lost their lives. It is horrifying. It is horrible. Like it is a tragedy. Like there's no other way to say it. But to your point about Jalen Carter moving forward with his life, like I agree. I don't think you can, now you can question his decision-making and
For
say,
sure.
I am concerned about his decision-making moving forward and what it means for him both on and off the field. That's a really fair thing to say. But to indict this kid for the rest of his life as horrible or as, killed someone or this, which was the type of stuff people are saying, like that is unfair.
I agree.
So,
and look, I don't know if Jalen Carter is a good person or not.
We don't. Exactly.
I don't know if Nolan Smith. I don't really know.
Seems like Nolan Smith.
He does, but I'm just saying.
No, I know what you mean.
But another reality is good people make bad decisions that lead to tragic events, and it is what it is. Now, that's why I think the bigger concern for me with Jalen Carter is this guy going to work really hard all the time? I think that is a track record type thing and something that really matters moving forward. And they're going to have to know the answer to that. Totally. And that's why he fell to 9. I would have taken him. I understand the complete euphoria from fans. They got the best player in the draft at the biggest position they need coming off the Super Bowl. I'm just saying when people fall, it's for a reason. And that's why if everyone wants to give this pick a 99, I would give it like a 94.
I get it. Yeah. And I think it's a really fair point. And the list of super talented players who never made anything of themselves because they didn't work hard goes on forever. The Jeff Georges, there's so many guys we could talk about who wow, that guy was so talented, it never worked out because he didn't care basketball. I mean, Derek Coleman, that guy could have been one of the best players we ever saw. Just didn't care.
The last Jalen Carter thing I'll say is, and I want to preface this by saying, I think Reuben Frank is maybe the best Eagles beat writer to ever do it. Yeah. Longevity, he's smart. I know him personally. Rube is an awesome guy.
He's hosted our radio show with us.
I love Rube.
Or others are off. Yeah.
But it's okay to disagree with people. I personally, since it's a topic now, people are talking about it. I didn't have an issue with the way Jalen Carter answered the question.
I didn't either.
To me, it seemed very basic, boring.
Well, and especially to Howie's point, Nick's point, given the situation, let's all remember Nick Sirianni's first Zoom, right? It's hard to do a Zoom when you're in a room and you're not in a room with people and you've never done this thing before. And it's the biggest night of your life and you're getting asked questions about tough things in your life, to our point of taking one night and indicting someone forever, to indict someone from an answer on one of those things, especially one that was vague and didn't really,
Right.
And again, now he's point where he can't really say everything. It's an active investigation, all this stuff.
I just think to me, Jalen Carter seemed like a rookie defensive. I've done so many of these draft interviews, right? He sounded like every single rookie defensive lineman they've ever drafted. Totally. Kind of quiet, nervous, not super his answers weren't a minute and a half each.
They were 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Now, who knows? I don't know Jalen, but from that answer, I did not get he is taking the situation.
Yeah, I think it's unfair to do that. And look, he might. We don't know.
Right. That's
maybe
what I'm saying.
He isn't taking the
And I wasn't in the room. So
who knows? But I agree with you from that answer, I think, and that answer combined with the situation, I think you can't take anything really away from it.
But overall, I think Eagles fans, we'll get to Nolan Smith now. Eagles fans should be very excited about Jalen Carter.
Yep.
We had to have the conversation about the off the field stuff, but as a player, again, the one of the highest compliments I can give him is every year I read the same 3 draft guides and I really trust them and I really believe them and they've been proven right a lot. Each one for his negatives were basically we'd be stretching if we did this.
Yeah.
From a player, he's perfect. He is the perfect defensive tackle prospect.
And again, what we both agreed heading into the offseason or during the offseason, their single position or after free agency, their single biggest position.
Right. He's super strong where he can just throw people around. He's super quick on his feet.
Dude, the tape. It's one of those where usually when they show lineman highlights it during the draft, it's whatever. His were
It's insane.
Like it blew off the screen.
He has super quick feet. He has really strong hands. And
he's just strong, period.
He's also kind of like an actual exciting version of Skoronski in the way where he has all those technical things that we said we didn't care about with Skoronski because he wasn't a great athlete. Jalen Carter comes to the NFL with pass rush moves and a plan on how to attack a passer, an offensive lineman, while also being an incredible athlete. Yeah. So there's a learning curve for him is going to be smaller because he's physically ready to dominate. He's quick enough to get around these guys, but he also has an idea of what he's doing. Like, of course he needs coached up. Every single player, Will Anderson needs coached up, but he doesn't come to the NFL like Luke Van Ness has no pass rush moves. So you have to say, all right, can we teach him? Can he do it? The tape for Jalen Carter, the hardest thing when you draft a rookie is saying, can I take what he did in college and do it in the NFL? If Jalen Carter is the same exact player and does the same exact things in the NFL, he will be an extremely successful defensive tackle. And so from that perspective, he was one of, in some qualities, the safest pick in the draft in that regard.
Yeah. I mean, look, his ceiling is Hall of Fame. Like just putting it out there. Like if all this like work ethic stuff, all the off the field stuff, it proves to not be an issue, like this guy can make the Hall of Fame.
I mean, the honest NFL account, which is either a current Eagles employee or someone that has worked there in the last 2 years, compared him to Jerome Brown.
Sure. Yeah. I've heard Warren Sapp.
Right. I think he's like almost a more athletic Fletcher Cox in a way. He's not as large in the belly. And I don't mean that as an insult, but Fletcher's just larger up top than I think Jalen is. But at the end of the day, I mean, like I said, if I was making the pick, this is the pick I would have made.
All right, let's get to Nolan Smith. Because again, it is a shame for Nolan in a way because a thrilling pick. Like I think we're all super, especially at 30, but kind of overshadowed by the Carter thing. Nolan Smith has been compared a lot to Hassan Reddick. They're really similar in size. And actually, Nolan Smith, a significantly better athlete coming out of college than Reddick was. If you look at, and you tweeted this out before, and I'd mentioned this on pods before, but like, I've never seen a spider chart like Nolan Smith.
Dude, his spider chart is
half
ridiculous.
This chart is 99%, and the other half is nothing because he is like super small, super short arms, all the stuff.
But here's what's interesting.
But like athletically, he's like 97, 98, 99 percentile in every single drill they did at the combine, Elliot. He is a freak from that perspective, a 4.3 40 as a freaking edge rusher.
I mean, he ran as fast. I think it was as Breece Hall, the running back for the.
So like there is, he is. This is such a clear like, the issue is the size, but everything else is amazing.
Right.
Your thoughts?
So I think around draft season, obviously, we get so wrapped up in the measurables, right? It's this guy's 6'1", 280 or. No, I don't know. Like, whatever. He's 6'1", whatever. And this guy's 6 foot. It's like, well,
that's a big difference.
Right. But if these people stood next to each other, like Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott is viewed as like this, hysterically tiny running back. When him and Kenny Gainwell stand next to each other, there's not that huge of a difference. If Boston Scott and Miles Sanders walked into a room or like my house or a party and I didn't know either of them, I wouldn't be like, wow, this Boston's super small. Miles is, giant. They're roughly the same size, right? So think about this. Micah Parsons, somebody who I don't think anyone would say right now is too small to be a great edge rusher in the NFL. He's 6'3", 245 pounds.
So he's like 15 pounds more than Smith.
Nolan Smith is 6'2", 238.
Yeah. Oh, he's 238. I thought he's 230. So he's even closer.
According to online, he's 238. Okay, and that was his combine measurement.
I mean, look, Hassan Reddick's 230.
Well, so Hassan Reddick.
Yeah, he's shorter.
6'1", 240 pounds. So he's the same size as Hassan Reddick. So when Reddick came
out, he was 230 in college. His college.
So he put on weight,
Yeah. So I mean, like that's the point. He's the same size as Hassan Reddick. And we just saw Hassan Reddick be one of the best Eagles pass rushers we ever seen for last season.
And trust me, as somebody that is always much well aware of how much I weigh, I am well aware that what you're listed out online could not be what you play at. So, and Nolan Smith is small for the position. But the point I'm making is, I think the concern about Nolan Smith's measurements is the definition of draft season hype. It's the definition of it. If you want to be concerned about the fact he was injured, like, okay, it was a pec injury, which I don't have super long-term concern about, but it's fair. He missed time. If you want to be concerned about his lack of sack production, I think that's a fair concern. I don't think that Nolan Smith's size will prevent him from being a good NFL player.
Yeah. And again, it's always, like we always say with all this stuff, it's where are they going? Who's going to coach them? The situation they're going to. Like we just talked about, he's literally going to a team that just got a 17 sack season out of his clone. Like,
well, we just said with Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter needed the Eagles, and there's more involved in that reasoning. Nolan Smith is also walking into a phenomenal situation. And, maybe
no pressure because they've got sweat.
Yeah, he'll be able to develop at his right rate.
They got, multiple rushers.
Yes. And now, maybe there's a pod for another day, but I think it does speak to the fact of how well run this franchise is made, that we are talking about two players coming here that we believe they will get the absolute most out of because of the program.
Yeah.
So it's a
and
props
again,
to them.
And even then, I mean, it goes further with us saying we trust off the field stuff because of the organization they put together. Like you've said it forever, and it's just. I mean, Micah Parsons said it last night.
I was surprised how
that was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, AJ Brown said it. He wants to be an Eagle. Like
obviously, he very clearly wants to be
dying
an Eagle.
to come home. But he even said it. He said that exact thing last night in that draft thing. He's like, the Eagles are just a great organization.
Yeah.
Like, how they keep doing this.
Right.
You know?
So with Nolan Smith, I am like so in on this.
Me
guy.
too, dude.
He checks every
excited.
Elliott box there is on the face of the planet. Elite athlete, wore a cool number. I think he'll have a cool number here.
Production.
Yes, like he is the Elliott defensive lineman player. That is the Elliott like poster child. I think he's going to be awesome. You look at his pass rush win rate. He gets to the quarterback. He doesn't sack him as much. But if you look at like Will Anderson had the same exact pressure rate. Aiden Hutchinson had one of the same exact pressure. I'll actually pull up the chart because I think it's worth reading. But at the end of the day, this guy, when he played in college, got at the quarterback better than – okay, so here it is. Will Anderson last year got a pressure rate of 16.9, right? Nolan Smith was 16.3.
Wow.
Will Anderson went number 3 overall, and the team traded multiple first picks to get him, right?
Which was insane, by the way.
Okay. Aiden Hutchinson, last year, what was he? Number 2, number 1?
Number 2.
His pressure rate was 13.3. Wow. Chase Young coming out was viewed as, 16.9. So if you said to me, Will Anderson, Aiden Hutchinson, Chase Young, and Nolan Smith, in terms of getting to the quarterback, they were the same guy. And to get him at 30, I think is such a good example of how people get too wrapped up in the measurements when it comes to draft.
I think so too.
This guy is an elite pass rusher, point blank period. He is going to impact the passer. He might not get double-digit sacks, but I guarantee you, if not next year because he's a rookie, but in his second year, he will be somebody that is consistently impacting the passer, point blank. And so at 30, yeah, I think it's a home run of a pick. If we were talking about him at 10, it's a different value. Maybe we could, highlight a little more that he's undersized. But at the end of the day, if we're doing this pod and they took Nolan Smith at 10, I'd probably be a little more upset that they didn't get Bijan. But I would be. I like Nolan was one of my top 3 players.
Yep.
The other 2 are gone. I think he's going to be awesome. The leadership stuff, we can talk about that. Like,
well, apparently he's as good as it gets. I mean, people are saying he's the next Brandon Graham already.
Right. Well, if you look, so 2 things. One, there was a moment at the combine when he was asked about the Georgia situation with Jalen Carter and the teammate. And he it was beautiful. He cried and talked about how much he's going to miss this guy. And so that obviously looks great. And then there's a video of when he's running his 40 and everyone on Georgia is watching in the Georgia locker room and going wild when he does well.
How about Nakobe and Jordan Davis being in his draft party?
Yeah,
they don't know he's going to the Eagles. They were just going because they love this dude. Yes. They want to support him.
Yes. So I'm all in. I think when you talk about, I have concerns about Jordan Davis and Nakobe as players on the field, but building culture, building for the future. Nolan Smith, I think, is somebody that of those 3 players has the chance to actually be the face of the defense, ultra great edge rusher. The defense takes his personality. He came from a winning program. He knows what it's like to have a good locker room, all those things, right? I think the Nolan Smith pick is just, I am so in on it. And overall, I like the combo of Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. I mean, it's like,
they got 2 D linemen.
Yeah.
they did exactly what we always wanted them to do.
And I think both of them are such better prospects than the last 2 Georgia guys. So as excited as everybody was, I think these 2 as prospects.
I mean, Jordan Davis was a better prospect than
I disagree.
Than Nolan Smith. And not for you, but I'm saying for the NFL. He went higher. It was a better first round, a tougher first round last year. I'm just saying the NFL valued Jordan Davis more than they
did. And I think the NFL's wrong.
I know. I'm just saying, you say it so definitively, declaratively. Right. I'm just saying,
in my opinion, I should say.
Yeah.
In my opinion, I would take Nolan Smith 10 out of 10 times. And honestly, of the 4, again, I would take Jalen Carter. But of the 4, I believe the most in Nolan Smith.
So in terms of I still think you and a lot of people underrate Nakobe Dean. I think he's going to be awesome. I especially think that now with Jalen Carter here. I mean, that's going to help him out a lot.
Yeah.
Again, I know undersized, dude's a winner. He's just a great football player.
You could be right. And I'm not rating Nakobe off.
Taking on the defense. Again, Who did Jalen Carter say? My mentor. Who's Nolan Smith's best
100%.
friend? Like, I think Nakobe matters like that. I think he's a leader, and I think the defense is actually going to take on his personality. But I understand your point, and I do think Nolan Smith seems like outside of just the physical abilities, he seems like a culture guy.
What's so funny,
like he fits him perfectly.
So I did the Players Lounge, I don't know, maybe 8 times with Nakobe last year. And it was in the podcast feed, so people have heard it. But for those that haven't, basically me, Ike Reese, and Nakobe would sit and do an hour-long radio show. And Nakobe's awesome, super smart, very hard worker, you can tell, genuinely nice guy. It is funny how he's talked about a leader. And actually, I guess Jalen Hurts is like this too. But Nakobe's quiet.
Mm-hmm.
So
Jalen is,
yeah. So I'm kind of proving myself wrong as I go. but ultimately, it was just, to me, when I watched Nolan Smith at the combine, Nolan Smith reminds me a lot more of Brandon Graham.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and again, people are making the comps, and again, it's just, what a thrilling night. Like, what a thrilling night last night was. I'm just, again, I know a lot of people want to Bijan. I know there are people who are concerned about off the field stuff and all that. But to go back to what we said at the beginning, and in a second we'll get to what we want them to do moving forward.
I don't really care.
Yeah, I'm
no, I obviously I care.
Radio show tomorrow. Check us out 1 to 3. We'll be like legit full radio show, reacting to all the picks. We want to hear from all the real ones, all the auto downloaders, all that stuff. But going back to what we said at the beginning, like, all these questions, whether it's about Nolan Smith's size or the Jalen Carter off the field stuff and all that, but just in terms of prospects and putting a bunch of prospects into a group and playing a board and going up against other general managers and ultimately playing a big 30-hand game of poker. Howie Roseman was brilliant.
Yeah, he won.
He was masterful.
Yep.
And again, the point you made at the beginning, I think, is that like his knowledge of the league, his understanding of what teams are going to do, his ability to be patient, his ability to understand value, like all these things for a guy who's been ripped for his draft picks. And by the way, been on a bit of a streak lately. I mean, again, I know Jordan Davis.
Yeah, and we'll see how these.
But there's some real potential with, and at least the Devontae Dickerson draft, the Sweat draft a few years. Like there have been some real hits, but for a guy who gets crushed, like there is no one better, maybe in the history of the league, because it was not that big a thing for a long time. Like I think Howie Roseman, certainly on draft night, and just period, the best wheeler and dealer in the history of the NFL.
I mean, look, Andrew Brandt said it on your show. I'm going to steal it moving forward. It's the last time I credit Andrew. I give him credit. He's a competitive advantage. Howie is a competitive advantage. Can he break down film? Like, no. I shouldn't even say no. I don't know. I also don't care. I know that what Howie's job as a general manager is to make what happened last night happen, not to overpay for moving up, not to get too compulsive, and not, again, I'm a terrible negotiator. I probably would have traded up and, been all types of reckless, right? But Howie's ability to sit there with that pressure, everyone looking at him, everyone waiting, and to say, wait, he will be there. And for it to happen, it speaks to, remember there was that article, this was a long time ago now, but basically saying no one respects Howie in the league and he's viewed as clear. Howie might have better relationships with general managers. Maybe they don't go out and drink at the end of the, but who knows? At the end of the day, Howie clearly has a good relationship with everyone around the league, the agents, the players, the GMs, all these things, because he always has the most information. And that's what you need on draft night, information. And he had it, and it worked out to perfection.
All right. Before we get out of here, looking ahead, whether it's the round 2 pick, the round 3, including we didn't talk about the Jonathan Gannon tampering thing. Let's save that for another pod to really get into it. But pretty wild that we didn't hear a word of this. And all of a sudden it's just like, bang!
Talking about the Gannon thing.
The Gannon thing. Like, we don't need to get into the whole thing. And I know you got to with the morning show and all that. Like,
it just is what it is with Gannon. Like,
look,
let's
I'm happy we got rid of Gannon and we got paid on the way.
I'm happy everyone got a chance to be mean one more time.
What do you want to happen over the next 2 days?
So I think tonight, rounds 2 and 3 could be a good secondary night. You look at who's fallen: Brian Branch, Joey Porter. I doubt that those guys make it to where the Eagles are.
No, but look how he has ammunition and picks for next year. So he's only used. What was this comment you said? Like, I have 12 next year. By the end, it'll only be 2. He's only used 1 so far.
Keely Ringo, another Georgia guy. I mean, I really like him. I think tonight could be a night to address the secondary. But for me,
do it. Do your thing.
Go get a running back, man. Go get a running back.
And you want them to trade for one?
I would. Austin Eckler, I'd have a ton of interest in getting him. DeAndre Swift's interesting. I would have interest in him. I'd have to look at him further. I have a perception of him that he misses time.
He does.
That could be wrong.
Okay. No, he has. He's had some issues.
Okay, so that would be a concern with Penny.
It was kind of a weird thing, but I think Penny and him might be a little redundant.
But I do think Swift has some of the Bijan McCaffrey thing where you get that dude in space, and he's a major problem in the passing game.
I agree.
So I would be interested in that. I mean, Dalvin Cook.
Sure.
Dalvin would probably Austin Eckler would probably be my number one, but I think Dalvin would be right there.
Yeah,
I think Dalvin would be awesome here. There's a contract thing with Dalvin. So for me, going into tonight and going into the rest of the draft, my number one priority is running back and trading for one. I don't think any of the ones they could draft, who knows, maybe they turn into there's certainly possibilities, but ultimately I would trade for a running back. I think they should address the secondary depth probably. I'm not as crucially in need of a safety as other people, but if they took Brian Branch, Jordan Battle, I think they'd be great picks. I just don't think it's you have to get a safety pick.
Kid from Illinois is good too.
Yeah, Jamie Robinson out of Florida State.
I would prefer a safety to a running back. I get your point. I just have more hope for Rashad Penny than you, but I understand the reality of it. I'm just not as concerned about the running back position as you are. I feel like they will figure it out. I trust Gainwell more than I did, So
yeah.
Again, I don't want to go into this. Ideally, the four they have right now is not my preferred going into the season with. But if they don't add another running back, I'm good going into the season with this group. You're not.
I'm not. Yeah,
I am.
Yeah,
but
it's not about Penny the player. It's just I don't.
On the field. I get it. I think we all get it.
And I think it's too important of a role.
I get it
to run to him. So yeah, running back would be the priority. But if they didn't make another pick the rest of the draft, they have two players who I think are going to be outstanding for them. Yeah, so they already got the instant impact, also future thing. I mean, it was a great first round. You got any final thoughts or other draft thoughts for you? Trying to think. I mean, Will Levis falling was okay. So I'll just do mine. I like the Houston draft for a sec. Oh, I thought they gave up a lot to go back for Will Anderson, but I like them taking Stroud. We both like Stroud. I thought the single dumbest, most absurd thing the entire night was the earmuffs 1, 2, 3. The fucking moronic. There was a less than 0% chance or less than 1% chance that Will Levis would still be on the board. Oh, the Will Levis analytics are based on what? Yeah.
Who the hell? How did you know? Did you talk to every general manager in the league and they said, "Oh, we're definitely taking Will Levis in the first round"?
Well, obviously, not.
I get it if you want analytics on things that can be judged, that can be statistically categorized. No one knew when the hell Will Levis was going to go. It was all based on rumor and innuendo. The whole, I thought that was the single most absurd thing maybe I've ever seen in a draft. It's there was a less than 1% chance that Will Levis would be on the board. You have no idea. This is so dumb. I love your passion for this. I thought it was so dumb. Well, I think in draft season, there can be a lot of just silly reports. But, man, the one that the Vikings would move up to 2 to get him. Whoops. And then he passes out him on 24 or whatever. I mean, all the Will Levis reports were just for fun. Would you take him if he fell all the way to 66? No, you wouldn't. I wouldn't either. I'm just curious. As a backup, no. I just don't think again. I just wouldn't do it. I don't think it's worth it. Yeah, it's not worth it. But it's an interesting question. Yeah. I like the Houston draft just because I like the CJ Stroud-Anderson foundational thing. I agree. I think Devin Witherspoon was overdrafted. First next year, I didn't love that. Devin Witherspoon overdrafted. But he's good. I'll say it at my core. It does. There's 5% of me that it hurts that they didn't take anything on offense the first night. But if they were going to not take offense, these are the things I would have done. Yeah. So it lessens the pain of it. Yeah. Table slamming day, buddy. There you go. Tomorrow, check us out. 1 to 3, WIP. We react to the draft one here from all our real ones, auto downloaders. Auto download the pod if you don't. It means a lot. So I do have a final thought, but I'm debating if we save these for non-draft pods. I think that's the move. Yeah. Let's save them. Yeah. All right. I'm going to bed. As many do at 11. I can't wait. Yes, that's right. That's right. Classic bedtime, 10:47. All right. Until tomorrow. He's up, James. Boom. Boom. Is Tucker awake? Just post Thanks, everybody. Appreciate everyone. Hey, guys. Thank you. 84 people. 84? Holy shit. Holy shit. All right. We'll talk to you guys later. Thanks, guys.